Okay, so we move forward for our next presentation. So we have here Ferdinand from Sanctuary System. Welcome. He will present us how to enable secure and scalable communication in growing space networks with PKI, public key infrastructure. Thank you a lot. Welcome, Ferdinand.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. The microphone is on. All right, yeah. As already mentioned, it's now about enabling scalable and secure communication, and that we will achieve with the help of public key infrastructure. First, a quick overview what to expect from this talk. First, a quick introduction. And then I will provide you with some motivation and background information to be able to get the concepts. Then we will talk about two main challenges that we face in the context of space networks with PKI. Then we present, of course, our solutions, and in the end, we will also show a quick evaluation of our approach and how it compares to traditional approaches. Yeah, so about myself, I'm co-founder of Sanctuary Systems and have the role of head and of R&D. So our background, my background, and also the background of the company is in cybersecurity for embedded systems. So we develop cybersecurity for embedded systems in different domains, one of them being the space domain. And the project I'm presenting today, so this work on public key infrastructures for space network that started already back at the university where research was done to this topic, and now recently we finalized an ESA project that basically took the ideas from the research further and got it to a next level. But let's start with some motivation. Why do we even need PKI and space networks? I think the previous talk already could also serve as a motivation. You saw that when you have many nodes, shared keys don't scale. And this is also the situation that we see. We have large constellations already in use, and more are planned. And within those constellations or multi-constellations, we have more and more different actors that are involved. Also, we want to integrate more with other services, ground services, cloud computing, and so on. The missions in general get more complex. And what we also see is more autonomy, which means we need a way to have sustainable trust relations between entities, which of course is also the basis for secure communication, that you trust your communication partner. This is now looking a little bit how this impacts the space networks and that they are dynamic nowadays. So first of all, the basis that we are looking for is, of course, secure communication. This means we want to prevent eavesdropping, so the malicious actor cannot listen in on confidential data, but it also means that we want to be protected against manipulation. So this is, for example, also relevant if a new spacecraft enters the network. So if a new satellite gets added to the constellation, of course, you want that this new spacecraft does not start a connection and share information with the malicious actor, but only with its benign peers. And while for a single network, you might think, okay, it's somewhat manageable with shared keys or something, but if you consider then that you have collaborations with other entities, the problem gets fast very complex. So then again, also the other constellation doesn't want to have interactions with the malicious actor, but still with the benign collaboration partner here, for example, you want to have connection possible. And this extends even further, so integration of other services, ground services, cloud computing, and so on, only extends the problem that you need to manage the trust and the secure connections between various entities. Yeah, and it's continuously evolving, so of course space networks should be used in many use cases. Your imagination is the limit. So you should also be not only considering what's the state today, but also looking into the future, what to be expected. But yeah, let's take a step back and looking a little bit more on the technical side. So what's the solution? Of course, the first and quick answer is asymmetric cryptography is a solution, because there you have not a shared key anymore, but what you have is basically two pieces of a key, and the public key is, as the name suggests, public, so you can send it around with no problem. So if these two spacecraft want to communicate securely, the one on the left sends the key to the one on the right. The one on the right takes the key, encrypts the message, and only the purple one with the private key can decrypt the message. So you might think, okay, nice, everything is solved. But the problem comes when there is a malicious actor, and this actor might also send a key to the spacecraft. And this one has no way of knowing which key is which, and therefore it will basically encrypt the secret message with the red key and send it, and then the red guy can decrypt it. So that doesn't solve the problem. And the red guy can even catch the key from the violet one and also forward the message so that you don't even notice the attack. So on the internet, you have the same problem. If you connect to your bank, you want to make sure that you're actually connecting to your bank and sending your login data to your bank, and not some cyber attacker. So the problem is not new, and the solution from the internet is also the solution that we need for space, and this is the public key infrastructure. So what is the public key infrastructure doing? At the very basic description would be, you want to bind the public key to an identity, so that when you receive a public key, you not only receive the public key, but also a proof that this public key belongs to the identity that you expecting the key from, that you want to communicate with. How is this done? So basically, you try to bind this, or the binding is in the end done and verified by something that is called a certification authority, and you have something that is called a root certification authority. That's basically the root, an entity that you trust, that when this one says, okay, this identity belongs to this key, then you say, yeah, I believe that. So on the internet, this is basically something like Google or other big entities that act in that regard, but they are usually endorsed by the government of the country. So basically every country has their own root CA, and this one you usually trust. And so for manageability, you don't do all the actions with the root CA, because this one is highly sensitive. So you basically make intermediate components and build a tree kind of structure, where basically the next CA, of course, you want to know, is this benign? So this one gets signed by the root CA, and then you can go on till you have a full tree. And then in the end, you have something that's called an issuing CA, and that one is actually giving out the certificates for the clients, which are often called principals in the context of PKI. yeah, so this one will then basically give every device a certificate saying, okay, this device is has this corresponding key, so making this binding happen. And this binding of public key to an identity is not only useful for secure communication, but also for other security services like secure software update or some integrity validation mechanisms like secure boot. Okay, then coming back to our example from earlier, where we had the two spacecraft who want to communicate securely, but now we have our PKI in place. And what do we have here? Now the spacecraft has the root certificate put on it at basically manufacturing time. That's also what's on your computer. Yeah, so you have the root certificates for the use of the internet, either directly in your operating system or in your browser, but they are basically pre-installed, and you don't need to manage them specifically. Okay, now if there is now the spacecraft A, it first of all sends a certificate signing request, basically saying, okay, I have now here my public key. Please provide me with a matching certificate. And in this step, the issuing CA will perform the validation that the identity actually matches to the key. This is can be done in all different ways. So, for example, for natural persons, it would be that you go with your ID card somewhere and prove, okay, this is actually me, and then you can get this this certificate. Okay, now the spacecraft does have the certificate over its key. So if it's now sending the key and the certificate, the spacecraft B can validate first of all this signature, then it will discover this one, will go all the way back, and will eventually come to the orange signature and certificate, having a full chain of certificates proving that basically this key was eventually approved by an ancestor of the orange one. So it can now know, okay, the identity actually matches. And then it can, as before, encrypt the message, send it back, and can be sure that only the violet one can decrypt it. Now, what happens if the malicious guy comes back in? This one, of course, cannot request a certificate from the CA, because the CA will say, yeah, but you're not the violet one, I will not give you a certificate. So it can try to make its own certificates up. It's just a cryptographic operation, so you can, of course, do it. But when it sends then its own certificate, it can make all kinds of intermediate certificates, but it will never be able, will never be able to get a chain here that goes back to the orange one, which means the spacecraft B will say, okay, I don't know where exactly it's wrong, but I cannot validate it with my own root certificate. I will just reject it. And therefore, the red guy cannot anymore intercept the communication, make a man-in-the-middle attack or something. Yeah, but what's the problem? This sounds all nice and simple. One problem is if something changes in this trust relation. So initially, you checked, okay, the key belongs to this entity and everything is good, but this might change. And one example is the heartbleed bug, where hundreds of thousands of keys from servers on the internet were compromised. So basically, attacker could read the key, and of course, then the key could also be misused by someone else, meaning that the certificate should not be valid anymore. Similarly, there have been cases where, certificates has been issued that should not have been issued. And what you need to do, therefore, is to revoke certificates that have been compromised. And this is important because also certificates usually have only a limited duration of validity, but this can be, in the extreme case, years. So you want to prevent that a certificate that has been compromised at some point in time can be used until end of validity. So you want to revoke it fast, ideally within minutes. And on the terrestrial network, PKI on the internet, basically what you do is when the two entities that want to establish a secure connection check the certificate they got from the other side, they also ask back at the CA, okay, I got the certificate, has this been revoked in the meanwhile? But of course, this is in networks where you don't have always a reliable connection back home, not possible. And the second major problem and challenge that you face with PKI is the multi-domain trust. So I mentioned earlier, basically every country has its own root CA on the internet, meaning that if a root CA from one country is compromised, this one can start issuing all certificates at once because everybody is basically trusting everybody else fully. And there were incidences where root CA from the Netherlands was compromised, and basically it started issuing certificates for Google, Microsoft, CIA even, and so on. Of course, this is not what you want, and this makes the trust in the overall system hard. If any single root CA, if it gets compromised or is intentionally acting malicious, breaks the whole system. On the internet, again, there is also a solution where the idea is basically and this came basically after these incidences only, that when there is a new certificate issued, this one is publicly announced in a public log, so that everybody can basically check what is happening, what the CA is doing, in the hope that if you're observed, you won't do bad things. But the problem again is when two clients want to establish a secure connection, they need to go back, either directly check the log or ask a bunch of other CAs, is this all valid? Is this all fine? So again, not applicable. And sometimes you hear ideas like bridge CAs or cross-signing to deal with multiple authorities, PKIs, but this is not an actual solution to the problem, it's just a solution. So a bridge CA is basically like a new route for all other CAs. So doesn't solve the problem. Now coming to the solution. First of all, again, looking what we want to achieve. Here we have, again, we want to consider large networks where multiple parties collaborate. Trust between the parties might change over time. Either it's compromise, it might also be other reasons, political reasons that two entities don't want to collaborate anymore, and so on. And you want to have a system that works for a long period of time, because you don't want to change your PKI every 2 years. Bit more technical, this leads to the requirements that we want to have a flexible trust model, a fast and efficient revocation, and of course we want to be post-quantum ready. Now looking at the solutions, and first we now look at the second challenge. And here we see now these 3 PKIs from domain A, domain B, domain C. And here we say, okay, every domain has now one principal, but of course could be many. And each principal has, as mentioned before, a root certificate, but only from its own domain. Yeah. Now, what happens if they want to communicate? They can't, because this one will have a certificate signed by its own domain, and this one has no root certificate to check it. So this, of course, doesn't work that way. So we need to extend that. And basically, what happens if when, usually at the beginning of its lifetime, this entity is requesting its certificate. It, of course, contacts its own PKI, and yeah, this one will check the identity and so on, and will issue a certificate for this principal here. But before you providing the certificate to the principal, it will provide it to a new component that we have introduced, which is called the inter-domain arbiter. And this one will, similar to the internet approach, announce the new certificate to all the other domains. But now the other domains will not just lock it, but they will check the certificate, and they can have different policies on what to check. Of course, one common check will be, okay, the certificate, is it actually for an identity that is under the control of domain A? So B will say, okay, if you try to make a certificate for my domain, I will reject it. But there can be other policies, like based on time, how long is the validity, and so on. It's really up to every domain. And then if the domain is fine with the new certificate, it will send back an acknowledgement. And yeah, basically the originating domain will collect all the acknowledgements and then will provide them to the principal, so that the principal has, of course, its certificate it gets from its own domain, but has also all the acknowledgements that were received. So if one domain doesn't send an acknowledgement, okay, you can't communicate with it, but that's how it is. But the one domain not collaborating cannot disturb the collaboration of all the others. Okay, what happens now if domain this one wants to establish a secure connection with B? It sends, of course, again, its own certificate to show the binding between its key and its identity, but it will also provide the acknowledgement of, in this case, B. So then B can validate the acknowledgement, which validates the certificate with its own root certificate. And it doesn't need to make any policy checks also or whatsoever, because all the policy checks has been done at issuing time. So the check is very fast and efficient on side B. And it can, in this way, still accept certificates from A. But only, or the acceptance is on a per certificate basis and can be changed at any time from B. Yeah, so B has basically gone through the same process when issuing its own certificate, so it got acknowledgements also from the other domains. So when responding and setting up a two-way secure channel, it will also send the matching acknowledgement. Yeah, and similarly, when you contact someone else, you always send the matching acknowledgement. Another nice thing about this approach is that you don't even need direct relations and trust relations between all the different domains. So with 3, of course, it's possible. But if you think about bigger systems and an internet-like system where you have many entities, basically, you need something that scales better. And for example, the Federated Byzantine Agreement can be used to also find agreement and provide acknowledgements to domains where you don't have direct trust relations. And this one is also consensus for dynamic groups, which means that even new entities can seamlessly join or leave the group without disturbing the system. Then coming to the second problem, the revocation and what we did there. Here again, it's more interesting to look at a bigger network of principals. Now, let's look what happens if a certificate from domain A, it's broken, it needs to be revoked. So what we do is basically we send out the revocation. This is, nothing special here. The important part is, of course, that domain A cannot, at this point in time, reach everybody in the network. So in this case, for example, it can only reach its own ground stations. But then the revocation information is encoded in a very compact way, so that basically on every contact message, all principals can exchange this information and get updated. So in a multi-hop manner, the information spreads epidemically in the network, and this leads to a fast, high coverage. And maybe some nodes are out of range at the time of the issuing, but due to the mobility of the nodes, of course, this can also change. And then eventually it will have contact, and they will have contact, and then they also get updated. And this leads to very fast and efficient distribution of revocation information. Looking quickly at how this is achieved with the information encoding and how it can be so compact. The idea is to have a structure called a sparse Merkle tree, which includes basically all certificates. And basically here you don't actually encode the revocation, but the absence of revocation, but you can basically compress it down to one hash value, so only a few bytes. And the important part is it's the deterministic structure, which means that nodes that meet each other can help each other in updating what is called a proof of inclusion, because every node needs to have an individual proof of inclusion to prove to others they are not revoked. But the tree structure allows that when two nodes meet, that they can, with a very high probability, provide each other with information, so that the one that is already updated can also fully update the second node. And after we developed all these solutions, we wanted to evaluate it. But since we wanted to have a solution for large-scale networks, we also needed a simulation for large-scale networks, and there was no solution available. So we developed our own network simulator for really large-scale space networks with thousands of satellites. Correctly simulating all the orbits and looking at when and how they are connected, including path loss models and so on. And this allowed us to simulate various network configurations with all kinds of parameters. Importantly, here is an overview. This is now a constellation, or actually it's 3 constellations, each with 3,000 satellites, so in total 9,000. This was also done with PKI crypto primitives. And then you can see that the data that needs to be transmitted overall in the network to distribute the revocation information is, so this logarithmic scale is about half of the known stable-based approach from the internet. And even more importantly, the time for 95% in this case of the network nodes to be updated is, as you can see, in the range of minutes, while the other schemes take multiple hours. And this you can also see here. Again, in a bit more detail, the green line shows the cumulative mass of updated spacecraft after revocation happens, and you see that up here you reach after 10 minutes almost all of them, and of course some have a pattern where they take some time till they connect to someone else again. So it takes a bit longer to really reach 100%, but it's still less than an hour. And you see all the others, they take significantly longer. So to conclude, we have shown a new architecture for PKI, which allows efficient revocation, decentralized trust negotiation, and is post-quantum ready. And it's still flexible so that it can be tailored and adapted to various mission constraints. And for the future, we plan to further develop our solution, and we are looking for engagement with, in particular, satellite operators and mission planners to get it into a realistic mission. And with that, I would like to thank you and invite you to come to our booth back there in the startup area if you're interested in more details. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. Thank you. Thank you a lot for your presentation. Do we have a question? 1, 2 questions? Please.
Thank you for the presentation. I have 2 small questions. The first one, which cryptographic algorithm are you using with this PKI scheme?
So this is flexible. So following crypto agility approach, you can plug in whatever you want. I don't know from the top of my head which one we used for this particular evaluation, but we basically evaluated with all PQC algorithms from recommended by NIST, and of course the classical non-PQC ones, RSA, ECC, and with also different key lengths and so on. We have evaluated all the variants, but I can't tell you from the top of my head which one was now used here.
Okay. And the last question is, in which layer of the protocol stack are you encrypting the information, or is it applicable to different layers in the protocol stack?
Yeah, so what the PKI provides is the identity of the public key. And so what we evaluated, for example, is also to see how this impacts TLS handshakes. But the public key is a public key that you can use in all kinds of different protocols. So it's not limited to TLS. In the end, you get a standardized X509 certificate with a public key inside, and from there you can do basically whatever protocol you like. And I think most of them are also compliant and compatible with X509. It's just the standard.
Do we have other questions? Once.
Thank you. How do you handle certificate rotation?
Yeah, so you mean reissuance?
Reissuing, for example, you have to change the root CA.
Yeah, the root CA you shouldn't have to change.
It has to change. It has to be revoked, or if it expires, you need.
So you okay? Yeah. So this so when you need to bring a new root certificate to the spacecraft. So this is not directly involved here. So this is something that would be extra, which we not explicitly considered here. I mean, you do that before your certificate expires, so you establish a secure channel, and then you send the new one, and then on your spacecraft you need need a client to accept the new one and store it. So, but this is not really part of the PKI itself. It's more like the overall management. No, we haven't implemented that. So far it was the main focus was on seeing the impact of the revocation, because this is something that you need to do on demand. This rotation, you can plan it, and so if it takes 2 hours to distribute an updated certificate, you know it in your head, so you start 2 weeks early. So there's not the problem. The issue is having the revocation fast, because this is something you can't control when this has to happen.
Okay, so thank you a lot. Ferdinand will be available on his booth, and enjoy the meal. We see each other here in 1 hour. Thank you a lot.